Some lives drift like silent clouds across a city sky, unseen, unheard. In New Haven, a black man swept away more than debris. He carried quiet dignity against indifference. A young white girl, her world confined by a window, watched lives she'd never live until their paths crossed unexpectedly. What began with a simple kite sparked a bond that would challenge prejudice and rewrite destinies. Will their story vanish like forgotten clouds or rise to change a town forever? Stick around to find out. Subscribe for stories that move you, and share where you're watching from. New Haven woke to humid summer air. Arthur Vance, a black man in his early 30s, moved through the pre-dawn hush, his orange sanitation vest a defiant beacon. His broom scraped against pavement, gathering forgotten flyers, wrappers, and the weight of indifference. These sidewalks were his battlefield. "Keep it clean, boy," a white shop owner barked, tossing a coffee cup at Arthur's feet. The words stung, but Arthur's face remained resolved. He swept the cup into his cart, his eyes fixed on the sunrise. New Haven was a city of unspoken rules, its buildings sagging under decades of wear. Townsfolk, mostly black, carried their biases openly. Arthur had learned to navigate their scorn, his heart armored by a quiet faith that small acts could outlast hate. His route wound past the Havenage, a home for children with disabilities. Arthur barely noticed it until one sweltering July morning. He looked up, and there she was, a girl no older than 10, her pale face pressed to a second-floor window. Her wheelchair was a dark silhouette, her body frail. Her eyes, though, burned with a hunger. They weren't resigned. They were alive, darting across the street, drinking in lives she'd never live. Arthur followed her gaze. A family shared breakfast. A young boy played with a toy car. The girl watched, her lips parted as if she could taste their freedom. Arthur's chest tightened. He knew that look, the ache of being unseen, the longing to belong. He didn't know her name or story, but she was white, and in New Haven, that alone could make her his enemy. Yet something deeper stirred, a memory of his own dismissal. Arthur turned back to his cart, hands trembling. He couldn't fix her world, but he could do something. He pulled out a brightly colored kite he'd repaired. He tore a scrap from his notebook. "You're part of this world, kid. Keep flying." He tucked it beside the kite. The Havenage's fire escape was rusted but sturdy. Arthur rigged a small woven basket to a loose pipe with rope. He placed the kite and note inside, tugged the rope, and watched the basket rise, swaying, to hover outside the girl's window. His heart pounded with hope. Would she take it? Minutes passed. Then, her thin hands fumbled with the latch. It creaked open, and she leaned forward, eyes wide. She grasped the basket, pulling it inside with reverence. Arthur held his breath as she opened the sack, her fingers tracing the note before tucking it away. She looked down, searching the street, and their eyes met. No words, just a nod, like a pact sealed in silence. Arthur nodded back, a rare smile curving his lips, and turned to his broom, the morning lighter. The next day, the basket hung empty. He placed another sack inside, a small wooden bird and a note. "You see more than they know. Your vision matters." As he swept, he glanced up. The girl, Aaliyah, was there, her face brighter, holding a drawing against the glass, a vibrant kite soaring over a stick-figure man with a broom. Arthur's throat tightened. He raised a hand, and she mirrored him, her smile a spark. New Haven's cruelty faded. They were two souls unseen, seeing each other, a beginning. Arthur's supervisor, Rhea, patrolled his route like a vulture. "Vance, you're loitering," she snapped one November morning. Arthur was adjusting the basket's rope, handing out trash to bums, your kind always scheming. Rhea docked his pay $10. It was the third fine that week. He swallowed the sting. Teenagers tossed a hot dog at him. His heart pounded, but he swept the mess, a silent vow. "You don't break me," an older woman muttered. "Some people don't know their place." Arthur heard it, but didn't falter. At the Havenage, Aaliyah waited. Arthur's gifts, pencils, comics, notes like "Your drawings light up the world," were lifelines. But Alara, a white caretaker, noticed. "What's he after?" she muttered. "People like him always want something." One afternoon, as Aaliyah clutched a new sketch, Alara stormed in. "Enough of this nonsense, that man's trouble." She snatched Aaliyah's gifts, tossing them into a locked closet. Aaliyah's world dimmed. Arthur sensed the shift. The next morning, Aaliyah's window was dark. His heart sank. He arrived earlier, filling the basket with a granola bar, a polished stone, and a note. "I'm still here, kid." Hours later, Aaliyah appeared. She held up a drawing, a bold kite connecting to a strong figure. Their eyes met, a promise unbroken. Arthur looked up at the Havenage, seeing his form outlined in the light from her window, a city of stars behind him. Their connection, forged in silence, defied the town's venom. Spring crept into New Haven. Arthur's routine continued. His basket offerings now read, "Your art makes the world brighter." Aaliyah's drawings were his reward. Their bond was a lifeline. But one April morning, the window stayed dark. His heart stuttered. He swept his route, eyes fixed on the Havenage. Hours later, the basket hung untouched. Dread coiled. He left another note. "I'm here, kid. Always." The curtain didn't stir. Rhea snapped at him for lingering. On the fourth day, he crossed to the Havenage entrance. "I need to know about the girl," he told the receptionist. "Second floor, by the window. Where is she?" "Transferred to another facility. That's all I know. Privacy rules." Aaliyah was gone. He returned to his cart, legs heavy. The basket hung limp. Had he failed her? He swept mechanically, the ache a quiet grief. He wondered if Aaliyah still drew, if she remembered. The basket stayed in his cart, a memory too heavy to unravel. At night, he'd stare at the city skyline, feeling her absence. He didn't cry, but his hands trembled. Yet he didn't stop. New Haven's cruelty hadn't softened, but neither had Arthur's resolve. He poured energy into others, sharing earnings with hungry neighbors, mending clothes, volunteering at a food pantry. His kindness was a rebellion. "You're good people, Mr. Arthur," a woman said. He felt a flicker of Aaliyah's light. The Havenage loomed. One rainy afternoon, he paused beneath the window. A bare pane. He saw Aaliyah's ghost face. "Keep flying, kid," he whispered. He swept on, heart heavy but unbroken. Arthur swept not just streets, but shadows of a world that tried to erase him. Somewhere, he hoped, Aaliyah still held his note. Time flowed. Arthur Vance, now in his late 40s, swept with the same rhythm. Aaliyah's absence dulled but never vanished. The basket stayed in his closet. New Haven changed superficially. Rhea retired, replaced by the indifferent Lena. Prejudice softened to polite avoidance, but still lingered. He kept sweeping, carving space for dignity. His son, Daniel, now in his mid-20s, a social worker, was Arthur's light. Daniel had his father's eyes. Evenings they'd sit in Arthur's kitchen. "Pop, you're going to wear yourself out," Daniel teased. "Somebody's got to keep this town human," Arthur replied. Daniel's pride shone. Arthur rarely spoke of Aaliyah. He hoped she was seen elsewhere. His kindness earned him quiet legend. Neighbors called him Mr. Arthur. A child at the community center gave him a drawing, a stick figure man with a broom. It stung, so like Aaliyah's. He tucked it into his wallet beside his old note. One spring evening, Arthur saw the Havenage's second-floor window open, a child's laughter drifting down. "Keep shining, kid," he whispered, turning away. New Haven's gentrification brought new tensions, but Arthur's resolve grew stronger. He wasn't just cleaning, he was carving dignity. Daniel noticed his toll. "Pop, you don't have to save everyone," Daniel said. "I'm just making sure they're seen," Arthur replied. He thought of Aaliyah, hoping someone else tied a basket to her window. The years wore Arthur, but didn't break him. November in New Haven. Arthur Vance sorted blankets at a charity hub. Aaliyah's memory was a soft ache. He looked up to greet a volunteer, but met a young woman in a wheelchair. Her bright eyes stirred a half-remembered dream. "Mr. Arthur?" she asked. He paused. "Do I know you?" She smiled, opening a worn sketchbook. A drawing, a vibrant kite over a stick-figure man in an orange vest. Arthur's breath caught. "It's me, Aaliyah," she said, "the girl from the window." The words rippled through him. He stared, bridging the gap between child and woman. "Aaliyah," he whispered, thick with disbelief. She nodded, turning pages. Each drawing, a piece of their past. "I kept them all," she said. "Your notes too. They got me through." Arthur's eyes stung. "You're here," he whispered. She told her story. After the Havenage, the Brooks family adopted her. They nurtured her art, now a celebrated graphic novelist. She showed him photos of her work. Arthur, haloed in light, a girl at a window. "You kept me going, Mr. Arthur," he whispered. "I'm so proud." As they spoke, Daniel Vance stepped in. "Pop," he called. Arthur turned, face alight. "Daniel, meet Aaliyah." She extended a hand. "Your pop changed my life." Daniel listened, eyes widening as Aaliyah recounted their story. He saw his father's reflection in her resilience. "You're incredible," Daniel told Aaliyah, then Arthur. "And you, Pop, why didn't you tell me?" Arthur shrugged. Didn't seem like a story worth telling, his eyes shining. They sat together. Aaliyah shared her struggles, her dream to create for the invisible. Daniel spoke of fighting for New Haven's marginalized. A spark kindled between them. Aaliyah pulled out a card for her next book launch. "Come," she said. Daniel nodded. Arthur watched them, heart full. As Aaliyah wheeled away, promising to stay in touch, Arthur stood, anchored by joy. Daniel touched his arm. "You okay, Pop?" Arthur nodded. Better than okay. Outside, the street felt changed. The ghost of Aaliyah's window was now a promise kept. New Haven's winter deepened. Arthur moved slower, but his spirit burned bright. His apartment hummed with warmth, welcoming Daniel and Aaliyah. Their reunion had rekindled his light. Daniel and Aaliyah became constants. Yet, a shadow loomed. Arthur's health faltered. Aaliyah's book launches were ritual. Her graphic novels drew crowds, but she sought Arthur's quiet approval. Daniel found himself drawn to Aaliyah's warmth. Their conversations stretched late. "Pop's a force," Daniel said. Aaliyah nodded. "He saw me when I was nothing." Their shared reverence sparked deeper love. Sunday dinners at Arthur's became sacred. Arthur, watching them, felt pride and a quiet ache. Arthur saw the spark between them. He knew his time was waning, but a secret lingered. Years ago, the Havenage offered a way to contact Aaliyah through a formal, fee-based process. Arthur, proud and private, refused. He believed his small, silent gestures were purer without bureaucracy. Arthur's health declined swiftly. Daniel urged a doctor. Arthur waved him off, but Aaliyah saw it. She brought him tea, her care mirroring his old notes. Arthur accepted, heart heavy. One winter evening, Arthur sat in his armchair. Daniel and Aaliyah were there. Arthur's breathing was shallow. "You two keep shining," he whispered. Daniel knelt, tears brimming. "Pop, don't talk like that." Aaliyah reached for his hand. "You're our light." Arthur smiled. "I've seen enough." "You carry it now." His eyes closed, his breath stilled. The room fell silent. Daniel's sobs broke it. Aaliyah held his hand. They sat until dawn. His passing left a void, but a charge to honor him. They buried him in New Haven. Daniel spoke of a father who swept away more than litter. Aaliyah placed a drawing on his grave. Grief bound Daniel and Aaliyah. Months later, they married in a community center. The ceremony was small, woven with his memory. At the reception, Aaliyah unveiled a painting. Arthur, his broom a scepter, a basket. Aaliyah at a window. For Mr. Arthur. Aaliyah said, "Who taught us to see?" Daniel took her hand. The painting was a vow. As applause faded, Ilara, Aaliyah's former caretaker, called out, "Wait, there's something more." She clutched a file. I have to confess. Years ago, Mr. Arthur was contacted. The Havenage offered him a way to stay in touch, but he refused. He thought any official contact would tarnish his acts to preserve the magic of his kindness. A hush fell. Daniel looked at Aaliyah, whose face showed shock. Ilara continued, tears in her eyes. "He believed it was better for you not to know, Aaliyah." Aaliyah wheeled forward, trembling. "He never told me." Daniel looked at the painting, a complex mix of admiration and melancholy. The revelation deepened understanding of Arthur's noble yet flawed idealism. The night stretched on. Daniel and Aaliyah danced. "He's here, isn't he?" Daniel whispered. Aaliyah nodded. "Always will be, and now we understand him even more." The moment was bittersweet, a powerful beginning. Arthur's life lived in them. As guests left, Aaliyah touched the painting's frame. "We'll keep it going, Pop," she whispered. Daniel squeezed her hand. They were carriers of a light that refused to dim. New Haven's spring unfurled. Daniel and Aaliyah, bound by marriage and a vow to honor Arthur, moved with purpose. Arthur's death ignited a fire. Aaliyah created with ferocity, her novels a tribute to the unseen. Daniel fought for the marginalized. Together, they carried Arthur's light. The Vance Foundation idea came after their wedding. Pop didn't save people, Daniel said. He saw them. "We need a place where no one's invisible, and where people understand complex help." Aaliyah nodded. Art, food, dignity, and a clear path to connecting. The foundation would be Arthur's legacy. They rented a vacant lot, framed by rusted fences. Aaliyah rallied artists, Daniel called activists. They cleared the lot, building an open-air pavilion. They named it the Open Window Hub. The first day, they served 12 people. Daniel ladled chili. Aaliyah sketched. No forms, just food and space. Word spread. Veterans came, then volunteers. Lena, Arthur's former supervisor, even offered unexpected patronage. Lena's firm, Sterling, offered to fund a permanent expansion and a scholarship in Arthur's name for sanitation workers' families. A shocking twist, showing Arthur's legacy had penetrated New Haven's hardened heart. The Open Window Hub grew, offering art classes, scholarships, safe spaces for kids. New Haven wasn't perfectly transformed, but it breathed differently. Daniel saw his father in every bowl served. Aaliyah felt him in the murals. Their son, Artie, carried his name and his fire. Arthur's legacy wasn't in headlines. It was in the Open Window Hub, in the people, in the truth that dignity was a right. As spring returned, the pavilion stood firm. Daniel and Aaliyah worked side by side, their love a steady flame, their son's laughter a song. They'd built a promise, one Arthur had written in every note. The Open Window Hub was his echo. Arthur Vance lived on, his legacy, a city slowly waking to grace.